Question 1. What treaty ended the War of the Spanish Succession and how did it affect Britain? A. The Treaty of Paris. B. The Treaty of Utrecht. C. The Treaty of Versailles. D. The Treaty of Lisbon. Answer: B. The Treaty of Utrecht. The Treaty of Utrecht ended the War of the Spanish Succession in 1713 and significantly affected Britain by ceding the territory of Gibraltar, which became a British overseas territory. Question 2. Name the architects responsible for rebuilding London after the Great Fire of 1666. A. Christopher Wren and John Nash. B. Inigo Jones and Nicholas Hawksmoor. C. Christopher Wren and Nicholas Hawksmoor. D. Inigo Jones and John Nash. Answer: C. Christopher Wren and Nicholas Hawksmoor. Sir Christopher Wren and Nicholas Hawksmoor were instrumental in the reconstruction of London after the Great Fire of 1666, with Wren credited for designing many churches, including St. Paul's Cathedral. Question 3. What were the main provisions of the Treaty of Union 1707? A. Unification of the English and Scottish Parliaments. B. Establishment of separate parliaments for England and Scotland. C. Division of Scotland into independent regions. D. Dissolution of the Scottish Parliament. Answer: A. Unification of the English and Scottish Parliaments. The Treaty of Union 1707 provided for the unification of the English and Scottish Parliaments, creating the Parliament of Great Britain. Question 4. Detail the contributions of the Levellers during the English Civil War. A. They advocated for royal absolutism. B. They promoted universal male suffrage and religious tolerance. C. They supported the divine right of kings. D. They fought for the abolition of the monarchy. Answer: B. They promoted universal male suffrage and religious tolerance. The Levellers were a political movement during the English Civil War advocating for equality before the law, religious freedom, and expanded suffrage. Question 5. Which act was passed first? The Reform Act of 1832 or the Catholic Emancipation Act of 1829? A. The Reform Act of 1832. B. The Catholic Emancipation Act of 1829. C. Both were passed simultaneously. D. Neither act was passed. Answer: B. The Catholic Emancipation Act of 1829. The Catholic Emancipation Act was passed in 1829, allowing Catholics to hold public office, which preceded the Reform Act of 1832 that extended the franchise and reformed parliamentary constituencies. Question 6. Explain the impact of the Corn Laws on British agricultural and economic policy. A. They promoted free trade. B. They restricted the import of grain, raising food prices. C. They lowered food prices by encouraging imports. D. They had no significant impact. Answer: B. They restricted the import of grain, raising food prices. The Corn Laws, enacted in the early 19th century, were tariffs and restrictions on imported grain designed to keep grain prices high, benefiting domestic producers but raising food prices. Question 7. What was the primary goal of the Cliveden Set? A. To support the British monarchy. B. To encourage educational reforms. C. To advocate for Britain's policy of appeasement towards Nazi Germany. D. To promote military expansion. Answer: C. To advocate for Britain's policy of appeasement towards Nazi Germany. The Cliveden Set was a group of influential individuals who, in the 1930s, were known to favour British appeasement policies towards Nazi Germany. Question 8. How did the British government respond to the Irish potato famine? A. By providing immediate and effective relief. B. By ignoring the crisis. C. By implementing policies that were criticised for being inadequate and exacerbating the problem. D. By evacuating affected populations. Answer. C. By implementing policies that were criticised for being inadequate and exacerbating the problem. The British government's response to the Irish potato famine in the mid-19th century was widely criticised for being ineffective, and in some cases worsening the impact of the famine. Question 9. What were the key stipulations of the Anglo-Irish Treaty of 1921? A. It confirmed the independence of Ireland. B. It partitioned Ireland into Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland. C. It established Ireland as a fully independent republic. D. It maintained full British control over Ireland. Answer. B. It partitioned Ireland into Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland. The Anglo-Irish Treaty of 1921 led to the partition of Ireland, creating Northern Ireland, which remained part of the United Kingdom, and the Irish Free State, which had self-government. Question 10. Who were the Young England movement, and what were their political aims? A. A group advocating for the return of absolute monarchy. B. A political movement among young conservatives promoting social reforms. C. Activists focused solely on economic reforms. D. A literary group with no political goals. Answer. B. A political movement among young conservatives promoting social reforms. The Young England movement in the 1840s consisted of young conservative members of Parliament who advocated for social reforms to address the plight of the poor, emphasising the duties of the aristocracy. Question 11. What caused the general strike of 1926, and what were its long-term effects? A. It was triggered by wage disputes and had little long-term impact. B. It resulted from religious conflicts and led to significant policy reforms. C. It was caused by wage and working condition disputes in the mining industry and led to a worsening relationship between workers and the government. D. It was a protest against military conscription and resulted in its abolition. Answer. C. It was caused by wage and working condition disputes in the mining industry and led to a worsening relationship between workers and the government. The general strike of 1926, one of the largest industrial actions, reflected broader labour discontent and had lasting impacts on labour relations in the UK. Question 12. What was the purpose of the Public Health Act 1848? A. To establish the National Health Service. B. To respond to the cholera outbreaks by improving sanitation and public health. C. To privatise healthcare services. D. To ban public gatherings. Answer. B. To respond to the cholera outbreaks by improving sanitation and public health. The Public Health Act 1848 was introduced in response to public health issues like cholera outbreaks, marking the beginning of state involvement in health matters. Question 13. Which British monarch faced the Abdication Crisis, and what was the outcome? A. Queen Victoria. She abdicated in favour of her son. B. King Edward VIII. He abdicated to marry Wallis Simpson. C. King George VI. He refused to abdicate. D. Queen Elizabeth II. She resolved the crisis without abdicating. Answer. B. King Edward VIII. He abdicated to marry Wallis Simpson. The Abdication Crisis of 1936 involved King Edward VIII, who chose to abdicate the throne in order to marry Wallis Simpson, an American divorcee, which was opposed by the Church of England and the government. Question 14. Describe the role of Britain in the creation of the State of Israel. A. Britain opposed the creation of Israel. B. Britain played a neutral role. C. Britain's administration of the Palestine Mandate led to the 1948 declaration of the Israeli state. D. Britain provided military support for the establishment of Israel. Answer. C. Britain's administration of the Palestine Mandate led to the 1948 declaration of the Israeli state. The British administration under the Palestine Mandate, a consequence of the Balfour Declaration and subsequent UN plans, significantly influenced the political landscape leading to the establishment of Israel. Question 15. What were the outcomes of the Battle of Cable Street in 1936? A. The government supported the fascists. B. It marked a victory for British fascists. C. Anti-fascist protesters successfully blocked a march by the British Union of Fascists. D. It had no significant impact on British politics. Answer. C. Anti-fascist protesters successfully blocked a march by the British Union of Fascists. The Battle of Cable Street in 1936 in London was significant as it saw organised resistance by anti-fascist groups successfully preventing a march by the British Union of Fascists, led by Oswald Mosley. Question 16. How did the Beveridge Report of 1942 influence post-war British society? A. It led to the reduction of welfare programs. B. It outlined the foundations for the modern welfare state, including the creation of the National Health Service. C. It had little impact on policy. D. It promoted privatization of state services. Answer. B. It outlined the foundations for the modern welfare state, including the creation of the National Health Service. The Beveridge Report was influential in shaping post-war social policy in the UK by proposing comprehensive social insurance and public health programs, leading to the establishment of the welfare state. Question 17. Who was the first woman to sit in the British Parliament and in what year? A. Margaret Thatcher in 1979. B. Nancy Astor in 1919. C. Theresa May in 1997. D. Barbara Castle in 1964. Answer. B. Nancy Astor in 1919. Nancy Astor became the first woman to take a seat in the British Parliament in 1919, representing the Conservative Party in the House of Commons. Question 18. Detail the events and significance of the Battle of Britain. A. It was a series of air battles over Britain in 1940, marking the first major defeat of Hitler's military forces. B. It was a naval battle that prevented a French invasion. C. It involved ground battles throughout London. D. It was a diplomatic event that resolved World War II. Answer. A. It was a series of air battles over Britain in 1940, marking the first major defeat of Hitler's military forces. The Battle of Britain was crucial as it was the first significant military campaign fought entirely by air forces and marked a turning point in the Allies' favour during World War II. Question 19. What was Operation Dynamo, and why was it significant? A. It was a covert operation to assassinate Hitler. B. It was the evacuation of British and Allied forces from Dunkirk, France in 1940. C. It was a plan to invade Normandy. D. It was a strategy to bomb Berlin. Answer. B. It was the evacuation of British and Allied forces from Dunkirk, France, in 1940. Operation Dynamo was significant as it successfully evacuated over 330,000 troops to Britain in face of German advances, preserving a large part of the British Expeditionary Force. Question 20. What were the primary reasons behind the formation of the welfare state post-World War II? A. To combat the rising influence of communism. B. To address the severe social and economic problems exposed by the war. C. To reduce government spending. D. To disband trade unions. Answer. B. To address the severe social and economic problems exposed by the war. The formation of the welfare state in the UK was primarily motivated by the need to address widespread social and economic issues highlighted during World War II, leading to the establishment of comprehensive social security and public health services. Question 21. What event marked the beginning of the Troubles in Northern Ireland? A. The Easter Rising of 1916. B. The Good Friday Agreement of 1998. C. The Battle of the Boyne in 1690. D. The Civil Rights March in Derry in 1968. Answer. D. The Civil Rights March in Derry in 1968. The Civil Rights March in Derry on October 5, 1968, often cited as the beginning of the Troubles, marked a significant escalation in the conflict due to the violent response of the police to the peaceful marchers. Question 22. Discuss the implications of the Suez Crisis of 1956 for British foreign policy. A. It confirmed Britain's dominance over the Suez Canal. B. It led to a revaluation of British foreign policy and diminished its role as a world power. C. It strengthened the relationship between Britain and Egypt. D. It had no significant impact on British foreign policy. Answer. B. It led to a revaluation of British foreign policy and diminished its role as a world power. The Suez Crisis exposed the limits of Britain's ability to act independently in international affairs without the support of allies, notably the United States, leading to a significant shift in its global strategy. Question 23. Who was Enoch Powell, and what was controversial about his Rivers of Blood speech? A. A British actor who spoke about environmental conservation. B. A British politician whose 1968 speech criticised immigration policies, provoking widespread controversy. C. A military general who spoke against British involvement in the Vietnam War. D. A poet who critiqued the government's lack of support for the arts. Answer. B. A British politician whose 1968 speech criticised immigration policies, provoking widespread controversy. Enoch Powell, a Conservative MP, delivered a divisive speech that criticised the government's immigration policies, predicting social unrest and racial conflict, which resulted in him being dismissed from his shadow cabinet position. Question 24. How did the Thatcher government change British industrial policy in the 1980s? A. By nationalising key industries. B. By increasing government subsidies to failing industries. C. By implementing policies that led to the privatisation of state-owned enterprises. D. By dismantling all forms of industrial regulation. Answer. C. By implementing policies that led to the privatisation of state-owned enterprises. Margaret Thatcher's government dramatically altered British industrial policy through widespread privatisations, reducing the role of the state in the economy and increasing the influence of free market principles. Question 25. What was the impact of the Falklands War on British politics? A. It led to the resignation of Margaret Thatcher. B. It resulted in a loss of territory for Britain. C. It significantly boosted the popularity of the Thatcher government. D. It had minimal impact on British politics. Answer: C. It significantly boosted the popularity of the Thatcher government. The successful recovery of the Falkland Islands after the Argentine invasion in 1982 played a crucial role in bolstering the domestic popularity of Margaret Thatcher's government. Question 26. Describe the significance of the Good Friday Agreement. A. It was a trade agreement between Ireland and the UK. B. It ended the Troubles by establishing a power-sharing arrangement in Northern Ireland. C. It established Ireland as a republic. D. It was a peace treaty between the UK and Germany. Answer: B. It ended the Troubles by establishing a power-sharing arrangement in Northern Ireland. The Good Friday Agreement, signed in 1998, was a major political development that helped to bring an end to decades of conflict in Northern Ireland by establishing a devolved government and power sharing between nationalists and unionists. Question 27. How did the Human Rights Act 1998 modify British law? A. It restricted the rights and freedoms of British citizens. B. It codified traditional British laws dating back to the Magna Carta. C. It incorporated the European Convention on Human Rights into domestic British law. D. It abolished all previous human rights legislation. Answer: C. It incorporated the European Convention on Human Rights into domestic British law. The Human Rights Act 1998 was significant for embedding the protections of the European Convention on Human Rights into UK law, allowing citizens to challenge breaches of their rights in UK courts. Question 28. What led to the devolution referendums in Scotland and Wales in the 1990s? A. Demands for independence within those regions. B. Economic disparities between the regions and the rest of the UK. C. A ruling by the European Court of Human Rights. D. Military conflicts within the regions. Answer: A. Demands for independence within those regions. The devolution referendums in Scotland and Wales were largely driven by growing demands for greater autonomy and self-government in those regions, culminating in the establishment of the Scottish Parliament and the Welsh Assembly. Question 29. Discuss the constitutional implications of the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom, established in 2009. A. It weakened the judiciary's role in the UK. B. It marked the separation of the judicial function from the House of Lords, enhancing the independence of the judiciary. C. It merged the legislative and judicial branches. D. It reduced public access to legal processes. Answer: B. It marked the separation of the judicial function from the House of Lords, enhancing the independence of the judiciary. The creation of the Supreme Court was a major constitutional change, removing the highest court from the parliamentary setting of the House of Lords to an independent setting, thus bolstering the separation of powers. Question 30. What are the main challenges that the Bank of England faces today? A. Managing inflation and ensuring financial stability in a post-Brexit environment. B. Deciding political matters. C. Enforcing immigration laws. D. Directly regulating the European stock market. Answer: A. Managing inflation and ensuring financial stability in a post-Brexit environment. The Bank of England faces significant challenges in managing monetary policy effectively to control inflation and maintain financial stability, particularly in the context of economic uncertainties following Brexit. Question 31. Detail the impact of the Brexit referendum on UK-EU relations. A. It strengthened the UK's membership in the EU. B. It led to the UK's withdrawal from the EU, causing significant political and economic revaluations. C. It had no significant impact. D. It resulted in the EU dissolving. Answer. B. It led to the UK's withdrawal from the EU, causing significant political and economic revaluations. The Brexit referendum in 2016 resulted in a decision to leave the EU, leading to complex negotiations and redefining the relationship between the UK and the European Union, impacting trade, law and free movement. Question 32. What legal and societal implications did the Marriage, Same-Sex Couples, Act 2013 have? A. It outlawed same-sex marriage. B. It recognized and legalized same-sex marriage, promoting greater equality. C. It restricted civil partnerships. D. It had no implications for legal or societal changes. Answer. B. It recognized and legalized same-sex marriage, promoting greater equality. The Marriage, Same-Sex Couples, Act 2013 was a landmark in UK law, extending marriage rights to same-sex couples and thus advancing LGBT rights and equality. Question 33. Who was involved in the Gunpowder Plot of 1605 and what was their objective? A. Guy Fawkes and other Catholic conspirators aimed to blow up the Houses of Parliament to end Protestant rule. B. Oliver Cromwell, aiming to overthrow the monarchy. C. Queen Elizabeth I, seeking to consolidate her power. D. Winston Churchill, as part of a military strategy. Answer. A. Guy Fawkes and other Catholic conspirators aimed to blow up the Houses of Parliament to end Protestant rule. The Gunpowder Plot, led by Guy Fawkes and a group of Catholic conspirators in 1605, was an attempt to destroy the Houses of Parliament during the state opening to kill King James I and overthrow the Protestant government. Question 34. Explain the role of the Magna Carta in the development of British constitutional law. A. It established the basis for the absolute monarchy. B. It had no impact on British law. C. It introduced the principles of justice and the rule of law, limiting the power of the monarchy. D. It focused on economic reforms only. Answer. C. It introduced the principles of justice and the rule of law, limiting the power of the monarchy. The Magna Carta, signed in 1215, is a cornerstone of British constitutional law, introducing fundamental principles such as the rule of law and the rights of individuals, forming the foundation for future legal developments. Question 35. What were the causes and consequences of the English Reformation? A. It was caused by economic disputes and resulted in increased European trade. B. It was initiated by Henry VIII's desire for a male heir and led to the establishment of the Church of England. C. It was a response to military threats and led to alliances with European powers. D. It occurred due to external pressure and had little domestic impact. Answer. B. It was initiated by Henry VIII's desire for a male heir and led to the establishment of the Church of England. The English Reformation was largely driven by King Henry VIII's conflict with the Pope over his desire to annul his marriage, resulting in the break from the Catholic Church and the creation of the Church of England, profoundly impacting religious and political life in Britain. Question 36. Who was the Prime Minister during the Battle of the Somme, and what was their military strategy? A. Winston Churchill, naval blockade. B. Herbert Asquith, Attrition Warfare. C. Neville Chamberlain, Appeasement. D. Margaret Thatcher, Guerrilla Tactics. Answer B. Herbert Asquith, Attrition Warfare. During the Battle of the Somme in 1916, Herbert Asquith was the British Prime Minister, and the military strategy employed was attrition warfare, aiming to wear down the enemy through continuous losses in personnel and material. Question 37. Detail the economic impact of the Napoleonic Wars on Britain. A. They resulted in economic isolation. B. They led to significant technological innovation. C. They caused a severe economic depression. D. They strengthened Britain's industrial and economic position globally. Answer D. They strengthened Britain's industrial and economic position globally. The Napoleonic Wars contributed to Britain's rise as the preeminent industrial and economic power, despite the immense cost, by stimulating industries such as textiles and shipbuilding and establishing Britain as a dominant naval power. Question 38. How did the Glorious Revolution of 1688 shape the constitutional monarchy of England? A. It eliminated the monarchy. B. It reinforced the absolute power of the monarch. C. It established a precedent for parliamentary sovereignty and the constitutional limits of the Crown. D. It had no impact on the monarchy. Answer C. It established a precedent for parliamentary sovereignty and the constitutional limits of the Crown. The Glorious Revolution led to the drafting of the Bill of Rights 1689, which laid down limits on the powers of the Crown and set out the rights of Parliament, shaping the future of the constitutional monarchy in England. Question 39. What was the impact of the Great Exhibition of 1851 on British industry and society? A. It led to a decline in industrial interest. B. It showcased British innovation and manufacturing, boosting both industry and national pride. C. It discouraged international trade. D. It focused only on agricultural products. Answer B. It showcased British innovation and manufacturing, boosting both industry and national pride. The Great Exhibition of 1851 was a landmark event held in the Crystal Palace that displayed the wonders of industry and manufacturing from Britain and around the world, promoting a sense of progress and possibility. Question 40. How did the British Empire affect the cultures and economies of its colonies? A. It had minimal impact. B. It enriched local cultures and economies without interference. C. It often disrupted local economies and cultures, imposing British institutions and economic practices. D. It solely improved educational standards. Answer C. It often disrupted local economies and cultures, imposing British institutions and economic practices. The British Empire had a profound impact on its colonies, often altering local economies through resource extraction and trade practices while imposing British cultural and institutional norms, which led to significant long-term changes in these societies. Question 41. Describe the role of Britain in the slave trade and its abolition. A. Britain had no significant role in either the slave trade or its abolition. B. Britain was a major participant in the slave trade and later played a leading role in its abolition. C. Britain only participated in the slave trade and opposed its abolition. D. Britain was minimally involved in the slave trade and its abolition was due to external pressures. Answer B. Britain was a major participant in the slave trade and later played a leading role in its abolition. Britain was one of the largest traders of enslaved Africans during the 18th century, but subsequently became a leader in the abolition movement, passing the Slave Trade Act in 1807 and the Slavery Abolition Act in 1833. Question 42. What were the major social and economic impacts of World War I on Britain? A. The war had little impact on British society and economy. B. The war led to significant technological advancements with minimal human cost. C. The war resulted in considerable economic strain and marked social changes, including shifts in gender roles. D. The war improved the British economy by boosting industrial sectors. Answer: C. The war resulted in considerable economic strain and marked social changes, including shifts in gender roles. World War I had profound economic consequences, draining financial resources and causing inflation, while socially, it saw women entering the workforce in unprecedented numbers and changes in class structures. Question 43. How did the British government address the economic crisis of the 1970s? A. By deregulating the financial sector and increasing public spending. B. By adopting strict austerity measures and reducing public services. C. By nationalising key industries and imposing currency controls. D. By implementing laissez-faire policies to encourage private investment. Answer: C. By nationalising key industries and imposing currency controls. During the economic crisis of the 1970s, characterised by high inflation and unemployment, the British government nationalised certain industries and implemented measures like currency controls to stabilise the economy. Question 44. What are the primary functions of the British cabinet? A. To serve ceremonial roles in government. B. To advise the Queen on legislative matters. C. To direct government policy and make decisions on major issues. D. To oversee local governments and manage regional affairs. Answer: C. To direct government policy and make decisions on major issues. The British cabinet, composed of senior government ministers headed by the Prime Minister, plays a crucial role in directing government policy and making decisions on major administrative and policy issues. Question 45. Explain the changes brought about by the Fixed Term Parliaments Act 2011. A. It abolished the monarchy's role in calling elections. B. It established fixed election dates every 5 years, reducing the Prime Minister's power to call snap elections. C. It extended the term of Parliament to 10 years. D. It removed the Parliament's power to legislate. Answer: B. It established fixed election dates every 5 years, reducing the Prime Minister's power to call snap elections. The Fixed Term Parliaments Act 2011 was designed to stabilise the electoral cycle by setting fixed dates for general elections, previously at the discretion of the Prime Minister. Question 46. How did the UK's relationship with the Commonwealth evolve after World War II? A. The UK severed ties with all Commonwealth countries. B. The UK strengthened its economic exploitation of Commonwealth countries. C. The UK transitioned from a colonial to a more cooperative and supportive relationship with Commonwealth countries. D. The Commonwealth was dissolved after World War II. Answer: C. The UK transitioned from a colonial to a more cooperative and supportive relationship with Commonwealth countries. Post-World War II, as many Commonwealth nations gained independence, the UK shifted its role to one of partnership, promoting mutual economic assistance and cultural exchange. Question 47. What role did Britain play in the Treaty of Versailles? A. Britain was not involved in the Treaty of Versailles. B. Britain played a mediating role, advocating for moderate reparations and penalties for Germany. C. Britain pushed for the harshest possible penalties for Germany. D. Britain focused solely on acquiring new territories. Answer: B. Britain played a mediating role, advocating for moderate reparations and penalties for Germany. At the Treaty of Versailles in 1919, while some allies sought severe reparations from Germany, Britain, led by Prime Minister David Lloyd George, advocated for less harsh terms to promote European stability and recovery. Question 48. Discuss the origins and outcomes of the Chartist movement. A. Originated from aristocratic leaders to enhance their political power, leading to increased political instability. B. Started among the working class to demand reforms like universal male suffrage, which led to significant electoral reforms. C. Began as a religious movement that had little impact on political reforms. D. Was a military campaign with no significant political outcomes. Answer: B. Started among the working class to demand reforms like universal male suffrage, which led to significant electoral reforms. The Chartist movement, emerging in the 1830s and 1840s, was pivotal in advocating for democratic reforms in Britain, influencing future legislative changes, although not immediately successful in achieving all its goals. Question 49. How did the Industrial Revolution originate in Britain, and what were its global impacts? A. It began due to Britain's isolationist policies and had minimal impact globally. B. It started with advancements in agricultural techniques and spread globally, significantly boosting economies and industrial capabilities worldwide. C. It was triggered by foreign investments and primarily affected Britain. D. It began accidentally and resulted in global economic decline. Answer: B. It started with advancements in agricultural techniques and spread globally, significantly boosting economies and industrial capabilities worldwide. The Industrial Revolution began in Britain in the late 18th century, driven by innovations in textiles, steam power, and iron making, and had profound effects on global economic structures, urbanization, and society. Question 50. Who were the Suffragettes, and how did they achieve their goals? A. A political party that sought to improve women's rights through diplomatic negotiations. B. Women activists who used militant tactics to secure women's suffrage in the UK. C. A group of female writers advocating for gender equality through literature. D. Women educators who promoted women's rights by establishing schools. Answer: B. Women activists who used militant tactics to secure women's suffrage in the UK. The Suffragettes, notably part of the Women's Social and Political Union, led by Emmeline Pankhurst, employed direct action and public protests to successfully campaign for the extension of voting rights to women. Question 51. What are the implications of Scotland's 2014 independence referendum? A. It resulted in Scotland becoming independent from the UK. B. It confirmed Scotland's decision to remain part of the UK, though it sparked ongoing debates about autonomy and future referendums. C. It had no significant implications. D. It led to immediate economic sanctions against Scotland. Answer: B. It confirmed Scotland's decision to remain part of the UK, though it sparked ongoing debates about autonomy and future referendums. The 2014 referendum, in which Scottish voters chose to stay in the UK, has continued to influence political discussions on Scotland's national identity and legislative powers. Question 52. Describe the cultural revolution in Britain during the 1960s. A. Marked by conservatism and traditional values. B. Characterized by significant social, artistic, and cultural changes, including the rise of the counterculture music and liberal attitudes. C. Focused solely on economic reforms with no cultural impact. D. Led to the isolation of Britain from global cultural developments. Answer. B. Characterized by significant social, artistic, and cultural changes, including the rise of the counterculture music and liberal attitudes. The 1960s in Britain were a period of dramatic cultural change, marked by the emergence of new musical styles with bands like the Beatles, societal shifts towards more liberal views on issues such as sexuality and civil rights, and a flourishing of the arts. Question 53. What were the reasons and outcomes of the decolonization process after 1945? A. The process was due to economic prosperity and resulted in the strengthening of the British Empire. B. Decolonization was triggered by financial strains from World War II and demands for self-determination, leading to the independence of many colonies. C. It was initiated by the UN with no significant outcomes. D. Decolonization was due to military defeats and led to immediate economic collapse in Britain. Answer. B. Decolonization was triggered by financial strains from World War II and demands for self-determination, leading to the independence of many colonies. Post-1945, the British Empire faced unsustainable financial and political pressures, accelerating the push for independence across its colonies, fundamentally altering global political landscapes and the map of the British Empire. Question 54. How has immigration shaped modern British society? A. Immigration has had minimal impact on British society. B. It has led to a homogeneous cultural landscape. C. Immigration has contributed to the diversity of the population and enriched cultural, economic, and social life. D. Immigration resulted solely in negative economic impacts. Answer. C. Immigration has contributed to the diversity of the population and enriched cultural, economic, and social life. The UK has a long history of immigration, which has played a crucial role in shaping its modern society by diversifying the population and contributing to various sectors such as the arts, cuisine, and business. Question 55. What are the legal rights and responsibilities of UK citizens today? A. UK citizens have no specific legal rights or responsibilities. B. Rights to freedom of speech and assembly, and responsibilities like obeying the law and paying taxes. C. Only responsibilities related to military service. D. Rights limited to economic activities. Answer. B. Rights to freedom of speech and assembly, and responsibilities like obeying the law and paying taxes. UK citizens enjoy a range of legal rights, including the right to a fair trial, freedom of expression, and the right to vote, along with responsibilities such as jury service, obeying the law, and paying taxes. Question 56. How did British foreign policy shift after the Cold War? A. It remained largely unchanged, continuing its Cold War policies. B. It shifted towards greater engagement with European integration and global peacekeeping. C. It focused exclusively on strengthening its nuclear arsenal. D. Britain withdrew from all international alliances. Answer. B. It shifted towards greater engagement with European integration and global peacekeeping. After the Cold War, British foreign policy shifted to a focus on European integration, contributing to international peacekeeping efforts and adapting to the new geopolitical landscape marked by the absence of a clear East-West divide. Question 57. Discuss the contributions of British scientists to the discovery of DNA. A. British scientists played no role in DNA research. B. Francis Crick and James Watson, along with Rosalind Franklin's crucial X-ray crystallography work, were instrumental in the discovery of DNA's double helix structure. C. Contributions were limited to theoretical physics. D. British scientists focused solely on the commercial applications of DNA. Answer: B. Francis Crick and James Watson, along with Rosalind Franklin's crucial X-ray crystallography work, were instrumental in the discovery of DNA's double helix structure. These British scientists made significant contributions to understanding the structure of DNA, which has had profound implications for genetics and biology. Question 58. What events led to the establishment of the National Health Service in 1948? A. The discovery of penicillin and subsequent medical advancements. B. The effects of World War II, which highlighted the need for a comprehensive health service accessible to all citizens. C. A sudden increase in population growth. D. Pressure from pharmaceutical companies. Answer: B. The effects of World War II, which highlighted the need for a comprehensive health service accessible to all citizens. The establishment of the NHS was largely influenced by the social and economic impacts of World War II, which underscored the necessity for a health service that would be free at the point of use for the entire population. Question 59. Who was Oliver Cromwell, and what was his role during the English Civil War? A. A royalist general who fought to preserve the monarchy. B. The leader of the parliamentary forces and later Lord Protector of the Commonwealth of England. C. A playwright who documented the events of the war. D. A foreign diplomat involved in peace negotiations. Answer: B. The leader of the parliamentary forces and later Lord Protector of the Commonwealth of England. Oliver Cromwell was a central figure in the English Civil War, leading the parliamentary forces against the Royalists and subsequently ruling as Lord Protector in a Republican government until his death. Question 60. What were the consequences of the Jacobite Uprisings for Scotland? A. They led to significant political autonomy for Scotland. B. They resulted in harsh reprisals and measures aimed at integrating Scotland more closely into the United Kingdom. C. They had no significant consequences. D. They triggered Scotland's immediate independence from Britain. Answer: B. They resulted in harsh reprisals and measures aimed at integrating Scotland more closely into the United Kingdom. The Jacobite Uprisings, particularly the last major uprising in 1745, ended in failure, which led to punitive actions by the British government, including the suppression of the clan system and the integration of Scotland into the British economic and political system more fully. Question 61. How did the British film industry develop throughout the 20th century? A. It declined steadily due to lack of government support. B. It remained largely unchanged and traditional. C. It evolved from early silent films to a globally influential industry, known for its distinctive genres and contributions to international cinema. D. It focused solely on documentary filmmaking. Answer: C. It evolved from early silent films to a globally influential industry, known for its distinctive genres and contributions to international cinema. The British film industry developed significantly over the 20th century, marked by pioneering achievements in film techniques, iconic directors like Alfred Hitchcock, and influential movements such as the British New Wave. Question 62. Describe the economic policies of the post-war consensus between 1945 and 1979. A. They were characterized by laissez-faire economics and minimal state intervention. B. Policies focused on nationalization, welfare state provision, and Keynesian economic management. C. The period focused exclusively on privatization and reducing public expenditure. D. Economic policies were aligned with strict free market principles, with no government oversight. Answer. B. Policies focused on nationalization, welfare state provision, and Keynesian economic management. The post-war consensus in Britain involved a commitment to a mixed economy with significant state intervention, including nationalization of key industries, the creation of the welfare state, and reliance on Keynesian economics to manage the economy. Question 63. What role did Britain play in the global spread of sports, such as football and cricket? A. Britain had little influence on the spread of these sports. B. As the birthplace of these sports, Britain played a pivotal role in their codification and international spread. C. Britain opposed the international spread of its native sports. D. The global spread was primarily due to American influence. Answer. B. As the birthplace of these sports, Britain played a pivotal role in their codification and international spread. The rules of modern football and cricket were formalized in Britain, and through the British Empire, these sports were introduced to various parts of the world, where they remain popular. Question 64. How did the welfare reforms of the early 21st century affect British society? A. They led to a significant reduction in poverty and inequality. B. Reforms were mainly cosmetic and had little real impact. C. They were marked by efforts to reduce dependency on state benefits and encourage employment. D. The reforms dismantled the welfare state completely. Answer. C. They were marked by efforts to reduce dependency on state benefits and encourage employment. The welfare reforms introduced by governments in the early 21st century aimed to overhaul the welfare system, emphasizing work as the best route out of poverty and tightening eligibility for benefits. Question 65. Discuss the significance of the Wind of Change speech by Harold Macmillan. A. It was a denial of decolonization processes. B. The speech celebrated the expansion of the British Empire. C. It signified British support for the continuation of apartheid in South Africa. D. It acknowledged the inevitable progress of decolonization and the need for Britain to adapt its policies accordingly. Answer. D. It acknowledged the inevitable progress of decolonization and the need for Britain to adapt its policies accordingly. Delivered in 1960 in South Africa, Harold Macmillan's Wind of Change speech famously recognized the nationalistic zeal sweeping across Africa and signaled Britain's readiness to grant independence to more colonies. Question 66. What factors led to the growth of the British Empire during the Victorian era? A. The empire shrank significantly due to constant wars. B. Economic motives, strategic interests, and the sense of national and moral duty contributed to its expansion. C. There was no significant change in the size or influence of the empire during the Victorian era. D. The growth was solely due to accidental discoveries by explorers. Answer. B. Economic motives, strategic interests, and the sense of national and moral duty contributed to its expansion. During Queen Victoria's reign, the British Empire expanded dramatically, driven by the pursuit of new markets, the acquisition of strategic territories, and a moral rationale often described as the civilizing mission. Question 67. How has the City of London evolved as a global financial centre? A. It has steadily declined in importance since the 20th century. B. It remains a small regional market. C. London has maintained and strengthened its position as one of the world's foremost financial hubs, adapting to global changes and innovations in finance. D. It has transitioned away from finance to focus solely on tourism. Answer: C. London has maintained and strengthened its position as one of the world's foremost financial hubs, adapting to global changes and innovations in finance. The City of London has continued to evolve, maintaining its status as a key player in global finance due to its strategic regulatory framework, innovation in financial services, and a favourable time zone for trading. Question 68. What challenges did Margaret Thatcher face during her tenure as Prime Minister? A. She faced no significant challenges during her time in office. B. Her policies were universally accepted. C. Economic stagnation, high unemployment, and social unrest were significant challenges during her tenure. D. Thatcher's tenure was marked solely by international conflicts. Answer: C. Economic stagnation, high unemployment, and social unrest were significant challenges during her tenure. Margaret Thatcher's government implemented controversial economic reforms that initially led to increased unemployment and social discontent, but ultimately were aimed at revitalising the British economy. Question 69. Explain the significance of the Battle of Agincourt in 1415. A. It was a minor skirmish with little historical significance. B. The battle, famous for the use of the English longbow, was a major English victory in the 100 Years' War against France. C. It marked the beginning of French dominance in medieval Europe. D. The battle resulted in a decisive French victory. Answer: B. The battle, famous for the use of the English longbow, was a major English victory in the 100 Years' War against France. The Battle of Agincourt is celebrated in British history for its demonstration of the effectiveness of the English longbow and the tactical genius of King Henry V. Question 70. Discuss the historical development and impact of the British railway system. A. It remained undeveloped until the late 20th century. B. The development of railways in the 19th century revolutionized transportation, facilitating economic growth and social changes across Britain. C. The railways had a negligible impact on British society and economy. D. The system was initially built for military use only and had no civilian applications. Answer: B. The development of railways in the 19th century revolutionized transportation, facilitating economic growth and social changes across Britain. The expansion of the railway network in the UK played a crucial role in the Industrial Revolution by enabling faster movement of goods and people, significantly impacting the social and economic landscape. Question 71. How did the Acts of Union affect the political landscape of Great Britain and Ireland? A. They had no significant impact. B. They led to immediate political stability and economic prosperity. C. The Acts united England and Scotland in 1707 and Great Britain with Ireland in 1801, shaping the political structure of the United Kingdom. D. They isolated Ireland politically and economically. Answer: C. The Acts united England and Scotland in 1707 and Great Britain with Ireland in 1801, shaping the political structure of the United Kingdom. The Acts of Union were significant in creating a united political entity under a single parliament, though they also laid the groundwork for future conflicts, particularly regarding Ireland. Question 72. What are the historical and cultural significances of Stonehenge? A. It was primarily a military fort. B. Its significance is limited to its function as an ancient calendar. C. Stonehenge is a prehistoric monument whose purpose remains partly mysterious, symbolizing endurance and historical continuity. D. It has no cultural significance and was accidentally constructed. Answer: C. Stonehenge is a prehistoric monument whose purpose remains partly mysterious, symbolizing endurance and historical continuity. Stonehenge continues to be a focal point for archaeological study and cultural speculation, symbolizing the ingenuity of prehistoric peoples and serving as a link to Britain's ancient past. Question 73. Detail the British contributions to computer science, especially during World War II. A. Britain made no significant contributions to computer science during World War II. B. British efforts led by Alan Turing developed the Colossus, one of the first electronic computers, to decrypt German codes. C. The contributions were strictly theoretical and had no practical application. Key British contributions were limited to mechanical engineering. Answer: B. British efforts led by Alan Turing developed the Colossus, one of the first electronic computers, to decrypt German codes. Turing's work at Bletchley Park was pivotal in advancing computer science and significantly contributed to the Allied war effort by enabling the decryption of the Enigma machine. Question 74. How did the British manage their colonial holdings in India and Africa? A. Through diplomatic negotiations and equal partnerships with local leaders. B. By promoting democratic institutions and self-governance. C. Through a combination of military control, economic exploitation, and indirect rule that often disregarded local cultures and political structures. D. They immediately granted independence to colonies without any management. Answer: C. Through a combination of military control, economic exploitation, and indirect rule that often disregarded local cultures and political structures. British colonial policy in places like India and Africa often involved coercive tactics, economic manipulation, and the implementation of indirect rule through local intermediaries, which had long-lasting impacts on these regions. Question 75. What was the impact of the Enclosure Acts on rural British society? A. They had no impact on rural society. B. They led to improved living standards for rural populations immediately. C. The Enclosure Acts consolidated land into the hands of few, displacing many farmers and altering the rural economy and society. D. They expanded public lands accessible to all. Answer: C. The Enclosure Acts consolidated land into the hands of few, displacing many farmers and altering the rural economy and society. These acts transformed the landscape of rural Britain from the 18th century onwards, leading to significant social changes by enclosing common lands and contributing to the rise of a market-oriented agricultural system. Question 76. Explain the role and powers of the Mayor of London. A. The Mayor has no significant powers and serves a purely ceremonial role. B. The Mayor of London oversees the Metropolitan Police, controls significant aspects of transportation and housing, and has a substantial budgetary authority to shape the city's policies. C. The Mayor is responsible for foreign policy and defence. D. The Mayor's role is limited to managing tourism and festivities. Answer: B. The Mayor of London oversees the Metropolitan Police, controls significant aspects of transportation and housing, and has a substantial budgetary authority to shape the city's policies. Since the position's establishment in 2000, The mayor has played a crucial role in directing the strategic governance of London, affecting various aspects of daily life and development in the city. Question 77. What were the political and social outcomes of the miners' strikes in the 1980s? A. The strikes had little impact and were quickly forgotten. B. They resulted in significant improvements in wages and working conditions. C. The strikes marked a significant defeat for the trade union movement and had long-lasting effects on British industrial relations. D. They led to the nationalisation of the mining industry. Answer. C. The strikes marked a significant defeat for the trade union movement and had long-lasting effects on British industrial relations. The miners' strikes, particularly the prolonged and bitter strike of 1984–85, were ultimately unsuccessful in achieving their aims and represented a turning point in the decline of union power in Britain, influenced by the Thatcher government's policies. Question 78. How did the UK participate in the creation and enforcement of environmental laws? A. The UK played a leading role in forming international environmental agreements and integrating sustainability into domestic legislation. B. The UK opposed any form of environmental regulation. C. The UK's participation was limited to local issues with no international involvement. D. The UK focused solely on economic growth without regard for environmental impact. Answer. A. The UK played a leading role in forming international environmental agreements and integrating sustainability into domestic legislation. The UK has been active in environmental governance, playing a key role in international climate change discussions and implementing a range of domestic policies aimed at reducing carbon emissions and promoting sustainability. Question 79. Discuss the evolution of the British legal system. A. It has remained unchanged since the medieval period. B. The system evolved from feudal laws to a complex and codified body of law that includes significant contributions from statutes and common law. C. The legal system was imported entirely from France in the 19th century. D. The British legal system is based solely on religious laws. Answer. B. The system evolved from feudal laws to a complex and codified body of law that includes significant contributions from statutes and common law. The evolution of the British legal system is marked by developments from early medieval laws through influences like the Magna Carta to the establishment of principles that underpin modern legal practices, including the role of precedents and common law. Question 80. What were the effects of the Black Death on medieval England? A. It had minimal impact, affecting only a small region. B. The Black Death caused significant population decline, economic upheaval, and social changes, leading to shifts in labour practices and land use. C. It led to immediate technological innovations. D. The population increased dramatically due to immigration. Answer. B. The Black Death caused significant population decline, economic upheaval, and social changes, leading to shifts in labour practices and land use. The pandemic struck England in the mid-14th century, killing a large proportion of the population, which had profound effects on the socio-economic structure, contributing to the end of the feudal system and changes in agricultural practices. Question 81. How did Britain react to the American Declaration of Independence? A. It immediately recognized the independence of the American colonies. B. It engaged in a military conflict known as the American Revolutionary War to suppress the rebellion. C. It offered to make concessions and avoid war. P. It ignored the declaration and made no response. Answer. B. It engaged in a military conflict known as the American Revolutionary War to suppress the rebellion. Following the American Declaration of Independence in 1776, Britain sought to retain control over its colonies, leading to the Revolutionary War, which ultimately resulted in American independence. Question 82. What is the role of the British monarch in international diplomacy? A. The monarch has no role in international diplomacy. B. The monarch is the primary decision-maker in foreign policy. C. The monarch plays a ceremonial role, representing the UK at state visits and official functions abroad. D. The monarch directly negotiates treaties with other nations. Answer. C. The monarch plays a ceremonial role, representing the UK at state visits and official functions abroad, while the British monarch's role in international diplomacy is largely symbolic. They serve as a key figure in representing Britain on the global stage, helping to maintain and foster diplomatic relationships. Question 83. Discuss the impact of digital technology on British media and communication. A. It has led to a decline in all forms of digital communication. B. Digital technology has transformed media and communication, facilitating the rise of new media platforms and changing how information is consumed and distributed. C. Digital technology has had minimal impact on traditional media. D. It has isolated the British media from the rest of the world. Answer. B. Digital technology has transformed media and communication, facilitating the rise of new media platforms and changing how information is consumed and distributed. The advent of digital technology has revolutionized the media landscape in the UK, with significant shifts towards online and mobile platforms, affecting journalism, entertainment, and personal communication. Question 84. What challenges and benefits have arisen from the UK's ageing population? A. There are no challenges or benefits. The situation has remained stable. B. The ageing population has led to a vibrant youth culture with no challenges. C. Challenges include increased healthcare and pension costs, while benefits include a larger experienced workforce and increased volunteerism. D. The ageing population has only contributed to economic decline. Answer. C. Challenges include increased healthcare and pension costs, while benefits include a larger experienced workforce and increased volunteerism. The demographic shift towards an older population in the UK presents challenges in terms of social services and healthcare, but it also brings benefits like greater accumulation of skills and experience and potential for increased community involvement. Question 85. How did the credit crunch of 2008 affect the UK economy? A. It had no noticeable impact on the UK. B. It led to significant economic growth and prosperity. C. The financial crisis resulted in economic recession, increased unemployment, and a focus on financial sector reform. D. It improved the stability of British banks. Answer. C. The financial crisis resulted in economic recession, increased unemployment, and a focus on financial sector reform. The credit crunch of 2008 severely impacted the UK economy, leading to a deep recession, prompting widespread job losses and a series of regulatory reforms aimed at stabilizing and restructuring the financial sector. Question 86. What are the ongoing effects of the Scottish Enlightenment? A. The Scottish Enlightenment had no long-term effects. B. Its effects are limited to Scotland. C. It continues to influence global philosophical, educational, and scientific thought. D. It resulted in the decline of intellectual activity in Scotland. Answer C. It continues to influence global philosophical, educational and scientific thought. The Scottish Enlightenment, a period of intense intellectual and scientific activity in the 18th century, has had a lasting impact on various fields including philosophy, economics and medicine, influencing contemporary thought and the development of modern disciplines. Question 87. How has British cuisine evolved in the context of global influences? A. British cuisine has remained unchanged and traditional. B. It has become less diverse. C. British cuisine has increasingly incorporated elements from global cuisines, reflecting the multicultural makeup of the UK. D. Global influences have been resisted strongly in British cuisine. Answer C. British cuisine has increasingly incorporated elements from global cuisines, reflecting the multicultural makeup of the UK. Over recent decades, British cuisine has evolved significantly, with an influx of flavours and techniques from around the world, making it more diverse and reflective of the UK's multicultural society. Question 88. What were the implications of the Ashes series for Anglo-Australian relations? A. The Ashes series led to political tensions between the UK and Australia. B. It has no implications beyond the realm of cricket. C. The Ashes series has fostered a friendly rivalry and strengthened cultural and sporting ties between the two nations. D. It ended diplomatic relations between the two countries. Answer C. The Ashes series has fostered a friendly rivalry and strengthened cultural and sporting ties between the two nations. The Ashes cricket series, contested between England and Australia, is more than just a sporting event. It symbolises a deep-rooted rivalry that has, paradoxically, strengthened mutual respect and camaraderie between the two countries. Question 89. How has the concept of British identity changed in the 21st century? A. It has become less inclusive and more homogeneous. B. British identity has increasingly embraced diversity, influenced by multiculturalism and global interactions. C. British identity has reverted to 19th century concepts. D. The concept of British identity has been abolished. Answer B. British identity has increasingly embraced diversity, influenced by multiculturalism and global interactions. In the 21st century, the concept of British identity has become more inclusive and multifaceted, reflecting the complex social, cultural, and political changes that have shaped modern Britain, including increased immigration and greater global interconnectedness. Question 90. What was the impact of the Plaid Cymru Party on Welsh autonomy? A. It led to the complete independence of Wales from the UK. B. Plaid Cymru has played a significant role in advocating for Welsh self-government, influencing the devolution process and the establishment of the Welsh Assembly. C. The party had no impact on Welsh autonomy. D. It weakened the movement for Welsh autonomy. Answer B. Plaid Cymru has played a significant role in advocating for Welsh self-government, influencing the devolution process and the establishment of the Welsh Assembly. Since its formation, Plaid Cymru, the Welsh Nationalist Party, has been instrumental in promoting the idea of Welsh national identity and self-determination, contributing to the political devolution seen in the late 20th century. Question 91. Discuss the significance of the English language in global business and culture. A. English has had little influence on global business and culture. B. The significance of English is limited to the UK and the US. C. English serves as a global lingua franca, facilitating international communication in business, science, and cultural exchange. D. The use of English is declining rapidly worldwide. Answer C. English serves as a global lingua franca, facilitating international communication in business, science, and cultural exchange. The English language's role as a global lingua franca is significant, making it essential for international business, diplomacy, and cultural dialogue, and reinforcing the cultural and economic influence of English-speaking countries. Question 92. What were the major public health campaigns in the UK during the 20th century? A. There were no major public health campaigns. B. Campaigns focused primarily on promoting luxury lifestyles. C. Major campaigns included anti-smoking efforts, vaccination programs, and initiatives to reduce heart disease and improve general health. D. Campaigns were limited to addressing rare diseases only. Answer C. Major campaigns included anti-smoking efforts, vaccination programs, and initiatives to reduce heart disease and improve general health. Throughout the 20th century, the UK launched several significant public health campaigns that have had profound effects on the population's health, including reducing smoking rates and preventing infectious diseases through widespread vaccination. Question 93. How has terrorism affected domestic security policy in the UK? A. Terrorism has had no impact on UK security policies. B. The threat of terrorism has led to stricter security measures and significant changes in laws related to surveillance and public safety. C. The UK has relaxed its security protocols in response to terrorism. D. Terrorism has decreased overall security awareness in the UK. Answer B. The threat of terrorism has led to stricter security measures and significant changes in laws related to surveillance and public safety. In response to various terrorist attacks, the UK has tightened its domestic security measures, including enhancing surveillance capabilities and enacting legislation aimed at preventing terrorism and ensuring public safety. Question 94. Describe the evolution of the British monarchy's public image in the modern era. A. The monarchy's image has deteriorated irreparably. B. It has remained static and unchanging. C. The British monarchy has adapted and modernized, becoming more transparent and engaging with the public through various means. D. The monarchy has become increasingly isolated from public life. Answer C. The British monarchy has adapted and modernized, becoming more transparent and engaging with the public through various means. In the modern era, the British monarchy has worked to maintain its relevance and improve its public image by engaging more with the public, participating in charitable activities, and utilizing media and public events to connect with people in the UK and around the world. Question 95. What role does the UK play in international humanitarian efforts? A. The UK plays a minor role with little impact. B. The UK is actively involved in international humanitarian efforts, providing aid, support in crisis situations, and advocating for human rights globally. C. The UK focuses only on domestic humanitarian issues. D. The UK actively opposes international humanitarian efforts. Answer B. The UK is actively involved in international humanitarian efforts, providing aid, support in crisis situations, and advocating for human rights globally. The UK is recognized as a significant contributor to global humanitarian efforts, often at the forefront of providing international aid and support during global crises and conflicts. Question 96. How did the punk rock movement of the 1970s influence British culture? A. It had no influence on British culture. B. It reinforced traditional cultural values. C. Punk rock brought significant cultural change, challenging social norms and influencing music, fashion, and art. D. It isolated British culture from international influences. Answer C. Punk rock brought significant cultural change, challenging social norms and influencing music, fashion and art. The punk rock movement emerged in the UK during the 1970s as a rebellious response to social and economic issues, leaving a lasting impact on British culture with its emphasis on anti-establishment attitudes and distinctive style. Question 97. What challenges does the UK face in its energy policy and sustainability efforts? A. The UK faces no challenges in energy or sustainability. B. Primary challenges include transitioning to renewable energy sources, reducing carbon emissions, and maintaining energy security. C. The challenge is solely to increase oil and coal production. D. The UK's only challenge is managing nuclear waste. Answer B. Primary challenges include transitioning to renewable energy sources, reducing carbon emissions, and maintaining energy security. The UK's energy policy is focused on balancing the need for sustainable and environmentally friendly energy sources with ensuring that energy remains affordable and secure for all citizens. Question 98. Discuss the historical relationship between Britain and the Middle East. A. Britain has historically had minimal interactions with the Middle East. B. Britain's involvement in the Middle East has been primarily through cultural exchanges. C. The relationship has been complex, involving colonialism, strategic alliances, and conflicts, significantly shaping political dynamics in the region. D. Britain's role has been entirely pacifistic, without any political or military involvement. Answer C. The relationship has been complex, involving colonialism, strategic alliances, and conflicts, significantly shaping political dynamics in the region. Britain's historical engagement in the Middle East has included periods of direct control, significant political influence, particularly post-World War I, and ongoing strategic interests, which have had lasting impacts on the region's development and geopolitical landscape. Question 99. How has the UK's approach to data privacy and cybersecurity evolved? A. The UK has no laws or regulations concerning data privacy and cybersecurity. B. Initially lax, regulations have tightened significantly with laws like the Data Protection Act 2018 and active involvement in global cybersecurity initiatives. C. Regulations have become less strict over time. D. The UK focuses on cybersecurity without regard to data privacy. Answer B. Initially lax, regulations have tightened significantly with laws like the Data Protection Act 2018 and active involvement in global cybersecurity initiatives. The UK has strengthened its data privacy and cybersecurity regulations in response to the growing digital economy and increased cyber threats, aiming to protect individuals' data and enhance national security.